Well, thank you again, you guys. I was just saying, I was Googling it. We have 75 days until the election.
Oh.
Are you guys ready?
No.
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 Now, why do you say you're not ready?
Because I want to say that I'm confident in what's going to happen, but I'm not, just because of what happened in 2016. I don't like not knowing, really, because you can look at poll numbers all day and they'll be.
Oh, wait, I can't hear you very well.
Can't hear me? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Because at the end of the day, like, you can look at poll numbers all day and that's great, but like last time showed us, not everybody either polls correctly or not every, you know what I mean? So you never really know. So it's a little stressful, I will say that, but that's why I'm not really ready.
Definitely stressful, definitely. But then again, I feel like I'm ready. I was actually just on the phone today making sure that everything was set into place for me to vote, because I actually don't turn 18 until October 14th. So I wanted to make sure that everything was good.
Yeah.
I do feel like this vote, this election, it kind of feels like life or death for me. Like I'm ready for things to go to vote. Like I want people to vote. I'm actually thinking about joining organizations that help get out the vote and that help register like elderly people and younger people, just so that way I could do my part in making sure that those around me vote. And I'm currently, like I said, in Fresno, California with my dad and a lot of my grandparents and older aunts and uncles. So I want to make sure that they're able to get out and vote. And just looking at my grandparents and seeing their worry. And then again, that like they come from a different time, and my great grandparents come from a different time. And at a certain point in time, like they weren't allowed to vote. So this election means a lot.
Well, because, yeah, you look at them and to see that they weren't allowed to vote. And so for you, you feel like, this is something that you don't want to take for granted. But at the same time, to cast my ballot, am I casting it for the perfect candidate? Am I casting it for the true president, the true person that I want to be president? Or am I casting it because I don't want the other, Trump to be president or Biden to be president?
Mm-hmm. I definitely feel like it's a little bit of both, because I mean, I don't think any human being is perfect and there is no quote unquote perfect candidate. But then again, I don't want Trump to be president. So, and I feel like if he is again, that puts a lot of people's lives at risk, and that scares me. Like I was thinking about it last night, and I was genuinely scared to see if something like 2016 would happen again. So I am trying to do my part, like I said before, and make sure that the vote gets out.
Yeah, this election's gonna be big. It's my first time voting. Throughout high school, like you said, I was doing a lot of getting out the vote and teaching students about politics. So now it'll be my turn to step up to the plate. I'm glad I'll be doing it from San Diego, so I won't have to register to vote, in New York, and go through that process. So I'm already ready. I got an email on my birthday saying you're good. So that was good. That was refreshing. And so yeah, I'm just excited to maybe. Not excited for who I'm going to vote for. Looking towards, especially for the presidential, but in terms of some of the local candidates, that'll be interesting. And getting out that, I remember with the primary, the polls were fun, not only for like the mayor, but some of the congressional districts and the supervisors. So like seeing how that will come together, it'll be a nice turnout. Yeah, because I remember in 2018, it was, depending on who you ask, it was either a good year or a rough year. In San Diego, Republicans got destroyed in 2018. So a lot of it's a hope of 2020 really get it back, and it's just it's just fun. Even if you're not taking a side, sometimes just looking at it like a numbers game is just interesting. So yeah, excited to see the turnout. In terms of myself, excited to be voting, not excited for like actually voting, I guess, or, like for the candidates. But yeah.
Well, and Diego, you've kind of been in the middle, and you kind of go, you're conservative and progressive in certain topics per se. So when you know that you're going to go to the polls on Thursday, on election day, your ticket isn't going to be all Democratic or all Republican, right?
Yeah, definitely not. Especially for like local, in terms of local issues, I would argue that party preference doesn't matter like nearly as much in terms of local issues. I mean, I interned for the party. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but the one thing is like they will like okay, I won't say it, but mainly it's like they won't do anything against you as long as you don't raise taxes. Like that's how kind of how they've gotten. It's kind of like they're okay as long as you don't raise taxes. So like working in the party before, it's like I don't know. I learned a lot of things. I learned that even within the party, a lot of them have different ideals, and yeah, that's why it's like for mayor, for example, Sherman's not even on the ballot, so it's just gonna be Tom Gloria and Barbara Bree. So that's gonna be interesting. And yeah, so again, in terms of local campaigns, I think that's where I guess I'm able to shine because it's not really I'm voting for all the policies of the Democrats versus all the policies of Republicans. They tend to mix and match. So yeah, that'll be interesting.
Matan?
I'm pretty excited to vote. First time. I'm excited for my candidate, which a lot of people can't say the same for theirs. So that's always a plus. Not looking forward to voting in California, where my vote won't count as much. I'd much prefer to be voting in Ohio, but how that works. And then I also have like an opportunity to potentially intern for an Ohio congressman, Steve Chabot. And I'm just looking forward to just getting involved with all that stuff. And I'm confident in how the election will turn out.
Just for the record, your candidate is Trump, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to assume. And kind of as we've been watching the DNC this week, and obviously in years past when we're watching it on TV, and you can really feel the energy, whether it be the DNC or the RNC, when you see these in-person conventions, the energy that's behind it. And now when you're watching it, it's all virtual, and it's kind of like you want to get hyped up about voting, and you're kind of just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Or have there been moments in the DNC that you have felt charged?
I feel like it was an emotional process or an emotional just viewing because of everything that's going on in the world today. Like the reason why we are not there in person or people are not there in person is because like there's a pandemic going on. There are people dying and there's so many other things that are going on. And that just made it emotional for me. And there were moments within the convention that did make me a bit emotional. The fact that, Michelle Obama was up there and just watching that again with my grandparents and my great grandparents who at one point in time were not even allowed to vote. It was an emotional time and an emotional setting. And it was both filled with sadness, but also excitement for the future and what America could be, because it's definitely not perfect at all. And a lot of us, if we could pick the perfect candidate, the people who are the VP pick and the presidential pick are not the ideal ones for the majority of us. Well, at least speaking for myself and those who I surround myself with. However, it was an emotional journey just watching it.
And did you feel that same way when you saw Kamala? I mean, obviously, when you see a former first lady who was a Black woman and you're watching it with your grandparents, but then you're watching last night and you see a Black woman who is a vice presidential pick, and never in a million years, maybe your grandparents would ever have thought that would have happened.
Definitely. And the fact that she's not only Black, but she's Indian American as well. And her parents are both immigrants. And I know identity politics is a bit, but then again, it's like, everything in America. People say, don't make everything about race, but everything in America is about race. And the fact that she is from both of those backgrounds, I do think it was powerful. And hopefully if they are selected, she holds up the things that she has promised. And she represents the people who, her background is made up of.
Have there been any other exciting moments of the DNC for you guys, or anything that you guys have kind of left disappointed or just kind of still up in the air? And Matan, you can comment too as well.
I mean, it's always a disappointment for me. Because, like, you know, they don't talk about their policies. They don't talk about what they're going to do. All they do is bash on the president. They're like, oh, you only have to vote for us because we don't want Trump there. They don't do anything. They don't say anything. And, like, a lot of their speakers were also very, like, bad. Like, they had Bill Clinton speak, like, days after a picture of him getting massaged by an Epstein victim came out. That was messed up. And then, like, also I feel like this is the party of, like, the Democratic Party is the party of, like, Believe All Women and the Me Too movement and stuff like that. And they have Bill Clinton speaking and Joe Biden as their nominee. And same with being, like, the party against, like, old white men and being against, or you could say they're against cops in some form. And then they have an old white man and a cop as their president and VP. It seems a bit hypocritical, and it leaves me disappointed to see that that's where the party comes to, even though they claim, like, progressivism and stuff like that.
Let me think about it for a second. Let me think about that for a minute. The thing about it is yes, they preach about progressivism and a lot of that, but you have to think about it in terms of the election and what voters they're trying to pull in with why Biden is the nominee and why they picked Kamala as the VP. They're not targeting kids our age. They're not targeting progressives. They're targeting moderates and Republicans that they can flip over to the other side. So yes, I understand your point, and it can be a little hypocritical, but if you think about it really in terms of voting and in terms of election strategy, it's not that bad. I mean, that's a lot of what politics is, unfortunately, is it's just strategy. So
it seems a bit like a Trojan horse. Sorry. I was just gonna say, like, Biden seems kind of like a Trojan horse candidate. Like, if you look at his actual platform now, it goes progressively left and left and left by the day. He makes deals with Bernie Sanders. He's said he'd appoint AOC to ahead of the environment. He said he'd put Beto O'Rourke, who campaigned on banning, like, all assault weapons, as head of guns. He keeps making deals going left and left. And that's because Kamala Harris is also the most progressive senator that we have, and she's the VP pick. It doesn't seem like they're trying to target moderates, but just putting a face on Joe. Their platforms are all very leftist, frankly.
Well, I don't agree with you. I think that Joe Biden himself and what he says a lot of the time targets moderates, and I think moderates like Biden, just because of who he is. And I think a lot of it does have to do with getting young people out to vote, which is why they're saying they're going to appoint AOC, etc. But also, maybe they're appointing them because they think it's also great ideas. It's a good platform. So I think it's a combination of targeting both voters, because there are a lot of moderates that have come out now and saying that they're not going to vote for Trump and they're going to vote for Biden. So that's working. But they also do, yes, want to target the more progressive kids that are our age and get them to vote, to even go out and vote, because our demographic is the least likely to vote. So I think it's a little bit of everything.
Right, and I think that kind of segues into this week when we're seeing at the DNC, you are seeing more of your moderates, conservatives trying to pull those potential Trump voters over. But I'm like, what about those Bernie supporters? What are they really doing to try to get those supporters and the younger voters, the more progressives? And I haven't felt like they've done that much. Well, I wouldn't say they haven't done that much, but I felt like they've focused more on the conservatives, bringing in Republicans to speak at the DNC. And I'm like, well, what about these people? You know?
And like I said, I think that has a lot to do with who will actually go out and vote. And statistically, older people will go out and vote. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to target those older people that will actually go out and vote versus the younger, more progressive kids like us. And that's just voter statistics. It's not, I don't think it's a horrible strategy. I don't think it's perfect, like most things in the Democratic Party aren't, but it's kind of like a what are you going to do situation. I mean, you're going against Trump, he does have a base that is very strong. So I feel like you kind of have to strategize in a way to where you can pull people that are most likely to vote, which I think is what they're doing.
I just think it's
Oh no, Diego.
Go. Oh, okay. So I just think it's interesting because obviously Democrats are in a tight squeeze, being pushed in from the left from progressives and pushing from the right from centrists, I guess. Centrists. I just think it's like it's hard to play both sides, obviously. And Biden's been trying to accommodate since he was the moderate pick. Since then he's been trying to, hey, progressives, don't not vote, because when Bernie dropped out, there was the whole I certainly saw a lot of people from my generation say, we're not doing Biden, why would we do two old racist white men? And so like a lot of Bernie supporters kind of like said, all right, well, I'm just not gonna vote. And not only that's bad, but I think I've seen on, not to call you out, but like on your story, Madeline, he has been Biden, even though he's a moderate candidate, he does have a lot of I guess I don't know, desserts for progressives. Like he has some benefits to people who lean left. And then I think it's just hard with the VP pick. It's like, who are you going for with that? Because especially with everything that's going on, other than just straight identity politics, which you can say if that's good or bad, other than just the fact that she fits in certain categories, she's not really moderate. She's not, given all the protests and stuff that's been going on, having a former attorney general probably wasn't the best move. I think there was other candidates that probably would have fit the criteria better, but obviously she has some pros to it also. But yeah, it just seems like it's a battle, I guess, between the future of the party and the expedient choice. So the expedient choice would be try to take as many conservatives over so you can win this election at the cost of hurting the party in the future from younger voters who get discouraged, I guess.
Well, when I spoke to Philip this morning, and he was bringing up, and we all had this conversation of he's so sick and tired of anybody but Trump, and that's what he's going to vote. That's how people are voting for, and he's frustrated that he doesn't want to feel like that, and he doesn't want other voters to feel like that don't want Trump in office. But do you feel like, even though Biden and Harris may not be your first candidates, you're still going to vote for them because you want it to be anybody but Trump?
Yeah, I do think, even though they are very flawed and they don't fit with my ideals perfectly, I think it is still a huge difference from re-electing Trump. Massive. Because even if you just elect candidates that are on the Democratic side that have some of your same ideals, that will put ideas in place, it's still progressing instead of going the other way, which is Trump has done. I mean, he really undid everything that Obama got done in his 8 years. And so trying to verbalize this the best way I can. It's not like you have to get on the train going the right way. You don't get on the train going the other way. You know what I mean? So the easiest way to progress and to get to that point where we can elect someone more progressive is if you start with someone like Biden and get everyone pulled in, and then you can progress from there. So I don't even know if that made sense, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I get it. Hey, Mithil.
Hi.
So kind of getting into it, it hasn't given me a countdown yet. So when I do the countdown, then we'll switch over. But do you feel like, as a first-time voter, and tonight Biden's going to accept the nomination, Kamala did last night, but do you feel, as your first time voting, do you feel defeated at all? Do you feel like, why am I even working this hard to invest in my vote when it's already decided? The election hasn't been decided, but the candidates have been decided.
I mean, I think that's the same thing you're dealing with in every election.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think there's anything particularly different this time. It always ends up coming down to two candidates and a couple of clowns who think they can make it.
There's the 10-minute timer.
Yeah, anyone want to respond?
I couldn't catch that. My dad can. So what did he say? Or what'd you say?
Yes, obviously, yes, it always comes down to two candidates and whether you like them or not. He calls them a couple clowns. It's who do you vote for? Who you think's the better candidate?
I mean, yeah, I agree in a sense because kind of unfortunately America is a two-party system. So you kind of get stuck with one choice that whatever choice fits your ideals the most. So, yeah, I mean, it's just
When, and I know I posted this on Instagram last week, but when Biden had chose Kamala as his running mate, do you think that that was the smartest idea? And now with the Biden-Harris ticket, do you think this will be enough to beat Trump? And Matan, you know, just like you said, do you think this makes it better for Trump's campaign?
I mean, it definitely doesn't harm it as like it doesn't make it better as much as some of the other VP picks would have been. Like, let's say if you chose somebody like mega progressive like Warren, like that would have been much better for Trump. But it's still like if I were a Democrat, I'd say that still Harris is not the best pick. There were much better options out there that could have been like more moderate or brought a different perspective of the vote to the ticket rather than the prosecutor hypocrite Harris.
Want to chime in?
Who's a better pick?
what?
Who would you say would be a better pick than Harris?
I liked Gabbard, and I mean, like Yang for president on the ticket, but I don't know as vice president, but both of them were good. And then maybe like even Page. I didn't like her in the Obama administration, but or Susan Rice.
I get why Rice. No, but I get why you would do Gabbard. But like I don't know from a perspective of like I guess the Democrats. Who would you guys?
Yeah, Gabbard wasn't. No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so who would I don't know? Assuming you guys are Democrats, I don't know. Like, what would you guys say is the best VP pick?
I honestly, I mean, if we're gonna think about it from like a strategy, like whose name is the best known, I do think Harris is one of the best ones. I can't really off the top of my head name someone that fit the criteria that Biden laid out that he could have picked that would be as big of a deal. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people, especially in the state of California, know who Kamala Harris is, and she ran for president. So when it comes down to that fact alone, I don't see any other option that he could have really picked. I mean, I think if they actually would have, his campaign actually sat down and like thought about it, maybe they could have come up with someone better. But if you look at, you know what I mean, what he wanted to do, he wanted a Black woman as his vice president. And she was probably I don't really know. I haven't spent that much time thinking about it, but from just off the top of my head, I would say that she was one of the best choices for that.
Definitely. I felt like I already knew that he was gonna pick her. I feel like everyone assumed that he was gonna pick her, so I wasn't really surprised. And I looked into a few other candidates, but then again, I feel like Kamala does have a history, a good foundation in politics, like many others. However, her name and just who she is, especially here in California, she's really popular. So I think just her on the ticket makes it a bit more, I guess, appealing to the eyes. Maybe not even just, oh, I want to vote for her because she's Kamala Harris, but just because of who she is and what she stands for. And and yeah, the fact that he wanted to pick a Black woman, I kind of knew it was going to be her.
Yeah. It kind of balances the ticket too, like how Pence kind of balances out Trump. It does the same thing. Biden is, what a lot of Democrats don't like about Biden is that he's an old white dude. So he picked instead, I mean, she's not young, but he picked a younger POC woman instead of a white man or even a white woman. So I think it did a really good job. And she has had one of the most progressive records in the Senate, like Matan said earlier. So I think because he is so moderate, and then she in the Senate has been more progressive, and with her, you know what I mean, the identity politics that plays into it, I think it was a good choice to balance out the ticket.
It's I don't know. I just think it's interesting just because when you look at, do you not hear me? Or?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, all right. Just because like when you look at Harris, and like you said, she's what the third or fourth most progressive senator, and it just it's interesting because a lot of Biden's I guess criteria that he set out early on, Harris fits those, and then a lot of the other people who fit it, or a person of color who's a woman, it's like they don't necessarily have that much experience like other candidates that he was looking at. But I feel like that would have been a better option to have someone fresh, I guess, just because the more you're in politics, the more dirt you're gonna have on you, and Harris has a lot of dirt on her, so as we've seen. But it's just like if you chose someone like younger, well, not necessarily younger, but like not as experienced in politics, I feel like that would have favored him, because the whole point of Obama picking Biden as the VP pick was he had experience. He can handle the Senate. He can handle negotiate, I guess. So I feel like if he is going with he already has experience, then you should have someone who's new and checks the boxes, and has fresh ideas, I guess. So I just think while at the sacrifice of name recognition, he could have had a better pick. But again, it's all better subjective and stuff. So
I think something that would have been terrible for the Democratic Party, but would have been fantastic in terms of, well, I mean, the country, is if he picked Nikki Haley, that would have been quite good, because it shows that, you're actually recognizing the true point of view of the Republican Party and not whatever Trump is doing.
I love Nikki, yeah.
Okay, well, Abby's gone, but I don't know if he would actually pick her. I never.
That's the thing. It fits all of his criteria.
Yeah, but and then he came out.
Except the Democrat part, but
yeah,
it would have definitely gotten out the majority of the saner Republican vote.
I took some time to really look at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's past. I kept seeing a bunch of stuff, like the reason why I didn't like Kamala Harris when she was running against Biden for the primary ticket is I kept reading things about how she was in a position in which she could have significantly decreased like the Black population going into prisons where she was a prosecuting attorney or whatever. And then I looked into that more and tried to look at her like race rates to see if she actually did anything for people of color in the area she was in charge in. And then I talked to my aunt, who is an attorney, and kind of asked her, like, what does this mean? Because there was some confusing verbiage there. And I said, did she really have a choice in these numbers? Could she really have that big of an influence over this? Just to understand, like, was there correlation? Was there causation? You know, was there any of that? And she kind of explained to me that as a prosecuting attorney, she doesn't really have as much control and freedom as the media kind of presents it as. So if there were a large amount of incarcerations of people of color in her area, it doesn't necessarily mean that was her primary focus. And that was all the product of how she chose to be a prosecuting attorney. And so I kind of like backed off my claims of she's been in a position in which she can help people of color and chose not to she was still just a victim of a system that, you know, perpetuated their flaws onto people of color in this country.
So she could change that though, right? Don't you think?
Yeah. The hardest thing that my aunt explained, because my aunt is a white Jewish woman with a mixed son. Like my cousin Noah that I live with, he is a Black American, you know, he's a person of color. And so she takes like that stuff, that consideration very seriously. She's like, I want what's best for my son. And which is why she was so upset when Trump was elected. Oh, anyway, and the way she explained it is if she would have aggressively ran, you know, a stop focusing on people of color, let's push for this, let's change to this, let's do this, then the sad reality is she would have tainted a lot of relationships with judges and other attorneys that were so crucial in building her political portfolio and legitimacy as a prosecuting attorney, because she stated that a good prosecuting attorney allows for her voice to be just kind of an understood and allow other people to put forth policy that helps feed that agenda. And it's less personalized, I guess, would be a good word for it. And because of that, she just kind of had to stick with that position and do as much as she could and wait to be, you know, like a real politician, like a senator or vice president, I guess now, to actually make change. And hearing her at the DNC and people speak about her career and what they saw it as, and the Obamas holding her to such a high standard, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just trust. I don't really understand how it all works, so I will just say that she's sadly was in a position where she couldn't do as much as I would have wanted her to as a PA, but she did her best.
I mean, you're still doing your research, and even though we know it's the Biden-Harris ticket, and you may not agree, you know, Biden and Harris may not be your first choices, but, you know, it is if you're going to vote. Do you think that this choice is going to keep those Bernie Sanders fans home from the polls? Because obviously they're not going to vote for Trump. So how, and do you think at the DNC this week that they've done a lot of work to get those voters out to even vote or not write in Bernie?
Yeah, so that's been my biggest thing in my research is I want to know how the more left voters who are all for Bernie Sanders, especially here in California, how they're going to respond to a Biden and Harris ticket against Trump and Pence. And I think there's going to be, like, that itself is going to be split two ways. Because the bad part about the DNC and it being online and just COVID in general is I was reading about how a lot of people are just like lethargic in anything that they're doing right now. They are exhausted with everything. Everything is just too much. Looking at the news is exhausting. Going online to look at anything is just depressing. And the views of the DNC and what was happening wasn't like this record high, big blue wave, all focused on what we're going to do next. It was really just like kind of just like standard television. It wasn't anything special. And I'm worried that in combination of a global pandemic, really depressing news constantly, you know, Biden not being this perfect candidate, I really feel like it's killed the momentum for the young voters that we had when we were backing Bernie Sanders. And we thought it was this like huge, progressive, amazing change. Now it's just kind of like, well, Biden's only a little different than Trump. And that's what everyone, like, that's the narrative everyone keeps pushing. I get, you know, it's anything to beat Trump, but I wish they would use verbiage that made Biden seem like a much stronger and progressive and beneficial candidate than Trump, instead of literally blue news media outlets being like, well, at least it's not Trump. I don't want to vote now. I'm like, I don't want to vote for Biden if you guys keep talking like that, because I feel like I'm just voting for a less rapey Trump. And that doesn't like spark, you know, political motivation in me. It sparks like, wow, this sucks.
Or, yeah, because it's like your first time voting and you really want your vote to matter. And that's what everyone's hanging their hat on. Well, if you don't vote, then you're going to vote for Trump. You know, do anything, you know, it's this anyone but Trump. And they did that back in the 2016 election. Not everyone wanted Hillary, you know, but then they're like, well, you don't want Trump. Well, look what happened. But, you know, as much as you try to fight, that's not what you want your argument to be. At the end of the day, that's what it is. But the biggest issue here is you have to make sure that people will vote, but they don't want to vote if that's what their only choice is.
Exactly. And that's why, like, because obviously, like, the sad reality is Biden really isn't that much more progressive than Trump. And he's nowhere near the level of Bernie Sanders. And honestly, Kamala Harris has been more, like, progressive socially than Biden has in some situations. But it's just, the reality is it's just better than Trump. It's a good Democrat to get in office. So then next election, we can either get rid of Biden and have a more strong Democratic candidate, or keep him for a second term and hope everything's fine. But I just know people my age are like feeling defeated that their first election is even worse than the awful 2016 election we saw with Hillary and Trump, where it was just a political smear of like, you know, her email, she's crooked, blah, blah, blah. And then Trump's a rapist. He's a liar. He's racist. And now it's just like, well, Trump's still racist. He's still a rapist and he's still awful. And now we have Biden, where I hate the pictures circulating around of him like kissing his grandchildren in like an intimate way, because to me, when I see that and they're his grandkids, I just see like poorly timed photos. I just don't. When I see Biden interact with people and I see him go out on these campaigns where he talks to workers, he talks to families, I see a man who genuinely cares about everything that they're saying, who genuinely cares about how they feel about him. And those pictures are so annoying because it's not the same as like the Trump accusations, where I can literally look at, Epstein journals and see Trump's name in them. I don't see Biden's name. I see him showing kind of creepy love to his grandkids, but I think that's just because he's like overstepping that grandpa role, I don't see it as him wanting to sexualize his grandchildren. Like, I have family members who do that same stuff to all of us grandkids. I don't call them rapists. I just call them weird ways of affection, and you just laugh about it,
Hmm. Well, and I think what you just said, I think really matters is the fact as a first-time voter, you just feel really defeated, and it just makes you want to continue to be involved and to make sure in this next election that this doesn't happen. Do you think, if you're going to vote today, or if the election were today, do you think Biden would beat Trump?
That is what is so hard, because I see so many different outcomes that could occur. Literally, I'm not gonna play around with you right now. The only thing that's keeping me motivated that Biden could beat Trump is that one political guy that has predicted every election correctly since like 1978 or whenever that election was, and he predicted Trump would beat Hillary, and he was right. He predicted that Biden was going to beat Trump, and that is what is giving me peace of mind. I'm like, you know what? He's been right every time, so hopefully this one. But on like social media, it's hard to gauge about, my fellow first-time voters if they're really going to vote for Biden, because they just share stuff like, at least it's not Trump, at least we have someone. And I'm like, does that mean you're going to vote, or are you just complaining? I'm really confused, because I know I'm going to vote. What are you?
Well, and you said, it's like you're still doing your research, but it's not like you're comparing it to any other candidate, right?
Yeah.
So are you still doing your research just to make sure that you are going to vote for Biden, or that you're going to vote at all? Is there any chance at all that you would not vote on election day?
Yeah, there's a slim chance that I would vote third party instead of Biden or Trump. And the only reason why that I feel secure in doing that is because I'm fully aware that our bipartisan system allows for very, very little any other party. It does not allow for a third party to have any legitimacy in running for president. I fully recognize that, but I live in California, where no matter how I vote, honestly, it's going to be Biden that gets all of California's votes. They're all going to go straight to him. And so I'm like stirring, and I'm going to do my research as best I can of like, morally, do I really support Biden? And am I willing to put my vote towards a man that I don't, have any moral quandaries with? Am I able to look at Joe Biden and say, yes, you are a good candidate where I will take my vote and put it towards you? And I'm afraid that in my research, I'm not going to be able to, because I know morally I could never vote for Donald Trump. Even saying his name makes my little moral compass flop around. But with Biden, he's been growing on me, honestly. Not as a perfect candidate, because that's what I had to separate really, is like a perfect political candidate and then just one that doesn't mess with my morals. Like I aligned more with Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang at one point, not as much politically with Joe Biden, but morally, can he also take a step in the right direction for what I want in the presidency and in the executive branch?
Wow, that's really interesting, because, the fact is that on election day, even if you voted third party, that person wouldn't win, but just morally, you just can't stomach the fact of voting for a candidate that could be elected and you don't fully support. You may not fully support Biden, but you can do it and feel morally your conscience will be okay.
Exactly. Like if it was what was the really old guy's name? I already forgot it. Sterling or something like that.
Do you know who that is? Who was the old guy that was
Steyer.
Sterling? He thinks, was he a candidate?
Yeah, it was Steyer, right?
Oh, Tom Steyer?
Yeah, Steyer. If he would have got the ticket, I had no, like, from when I researched him, I did not see anything morally that I was like, holy crap, why in the world would you do that, We didn't align the best politically, but it was at least more than I did for Trump, and I had no moral issues with him. My issues with Biden are, these claims of him being just as bad as Donald Trump. And so I'm looking into those, and I'm like, is he just showing creepy affection to his grandchildren, or is he really, like, also a pedophile? I don't know. I got to figure this out.
Or is he just like Hillary? Is he just as shady as Hillary was?
Exactly. Is there some kind of like two-faced Biden where to the public he's like this, but behind the scenes he's a closet Republican and he just wants to pretend to be a Democrat so he can get office? I have no idea, and I only have a few months to figure that out. And all this, like, did you see what happened with NBC and AOC yesterday or the day before?
No.
So NBC wrote an article about AOC's appearance on the DNC backing Biden, and they wrote it literally said AOC denies support for Biden, stands with claims that she supports Bernie Sanders, which made it like when you clicked on the article, you were like, oh my God, did AOC really get in front of the DNC and say Bernie, not Biden, and click on it? And obviously that's how most news media, whatever, focuses on. But she quoted a tweet and was like, how dare you even make this claim when, and then put a link to the actual video of her saying, I support Joe Biden for the Democratic ticket. And then it took them like 8 hours to remove the article. But below where they removed it, they had a screenshot of the article and said, we don't want it going around the internet anymore because we realized we put forward misinformation, but kept the picture that they wanted to avoid going around as evidence, literally said, we're keeping this as evidence, and then made like some fake apology and put a real headline below it that was literally the exact opposite of what they said the first time. And AOC was like, you still kept it around, you still lied, you still made it seem like I didn't support Biden. And so it's hard to even trust Democratic media now because they're turning against everyone. So I'm like, well, if this media says Biden's creepy and did this and whatever, how do I know it's real when this one says this? It's stressful.
Well, and that's pretty reckless of them because, I mean, I'm not a news pro or anything, but I know that when you're voting for your delegates, it's what your county has pledged to do. So she had to pledge for Bernie Sanders, you know, and so it's like the whole delegate rule, and that was the whole point of it. But a national news media like that should know better and do a better job of educating the public about delegates' roles. Delegates is still confusing to me. I just know that she just had to pledge to Bernie. That doesn't mean that like I don't support Biden. And so in all that mixed messaging, it still was hard to understand for those, I think it did some damage for the far left that did support AOC. And they say, well, if she's not supporting Biden, she's going to pledge towards Bernie, then what are we doing here? But that wasn't the rules of the delegates. And so, when I watched it, you know, I was like, oh my God, she's, you know, still all behind Bernie. That's, you know, her messaging I thought was, you know, fell flat. And so I thought, gosh, the DNC, you guys are bringing in these Republicans. You're trying to cater to more of your conservative, middle of the road Democrats or those that may vote for Trump. But you really, really need to focus on those far left voters. I mean, that's where the biggest problem is right now. And, you know, and I don't know, is this still an issue, you think, with Black voters of what Biden had said a couple months ago when he had said that, like, what did he say? If you're Black, you're not Republican or something.
Oh yeah, the like borderline kind of racist thing that he said. I don't know exact words. I actually just read about that yesterday and how Black votes are looking at Biden after that claim, and then after he also slipped up and said that he said like the white kids and then like poor Asian kids, or you know, like poor kids are the ones that are people of color, and made them seem less intelligent. I don't remember the exact words, but they were borderline racist statements that just slip of the tongue is what I think they were, because he corrected himself and was like, no, not what I meant. Let me fix that statement. I was reading about that, and they stated that the Black Lives Matter movement has put forward this agenda for the Black community and said that we want change. And right now, under the Trump administration, we still see police brutality. We still see high, like in
incarceration rates, and
then also in the hospitals, we see like Black women, you are 3 times more likely as a Black child in America to survive childbirth if your doctor is Black. Mm-hmm. But if they are white, you are 3 times more likely to die simply because of the color of your skin. And that is so insane. And Black Lives Matter has like been encompassing all of that. They're like, in the hospital industry, we have issues. In police, we have issue. In news media representation, in political representation, we have issues. And I think Biden has done enough with the Black community in the past, and he doesn't seem like this person who just popped up as soon as Black Lives Matter was a movement and started being like, oh yeah, you know, Black Lives Matter. He's been putting in that work for the last few years, especially when he was VP with Obama. And I think because of that, it's easier for them to overlook those slip ups and be like, this is the candidate we want to get behind. I really
he has
think
some kind of like street cred or has
exactly.
a record. This wasn't anything new, that where he's kind of been a big supporter. I think even like when he first started, like back in the, what was it, the 70s or 80s? I can't remember. I was listening to some podcast where if you look at his record, even though with the whole busing issue that Kamala had brought up in the debates early on, he has, I think, done a lot for the Black community. It's just keeping that focused right now. I mean, right now is critical. And I think what you were saying with the DNC, it's so heartbreaking when you watch the DNC right now, because it's like, and the RNC will be the same way. It's just that, you know, that big fanfare, and even though you're not there and you're watching TV, you can feel the energy, and you just wonder, God, right now, what would it be like to be there? And I had asked earlier this week to some political analysts, you know, how can the parties try to reimagine that energy? And they're like, you can't, you know, it's just now we just really have to stay focused on the message. And so with all these different speakers and stuff, it still is kind of boring, you know?
It is. I love politics. And there were times where I was like, what is going on? Why are we talking for so long? What the heck?
Yeah.
They aren't, I know we're like in super, super unique circumstances, right? Like coronavirus has really thrown everything for a loop. Technology, we're all still trying to get used to looking at a news station and now seeing quality like what we're looking at right now, because not everyone has, you know, TV cameras on their laptops. They have, you know, Dells and stuff. And even that visually was like, why does Michelle Obama look like she's FaceTiming from an Android right now? But, you know, the commenter next to her looks like, you know, the best TV can provide. And I think that like visually, even literally that is as simple as people tune it out. When it's that, they look at that, they're like, I don't like how that looks. Bye. And it's simple stuff like that that are turning people away. And it's like, well, how are they fixing that? You can't really fix it.
This is like the day, you know, the day and age and what we're in right now, you know, even for us, you know, we have to do Zoom interviews and stuff. And I'm on like these different Facebook pages about, you know, for journalists and stuff and how they really like try to up it. And I'm like, it's just a day and age. Like sometimes it's not going to look that great. Get over it, people. But
Exactly. Like I'm sorry, I don't know the full capabilities of technology, but you're just not going to get every single person zooming from home on 100 HD perfect pixels. It's just not going to work like that. And people expect it to be this amazing transformation. And I'm like, girl, when you're zooming your boss, it doesn't even look that good. So why are you trying to hold everyone else to that standard?
well, and I kind of like it because it feels like it feels like you're really in my living room. It doesn't feel like this nice, polished, untouchable thing. And so I thought this might, you know, this pandemic and how we delivered the news will really change how we do it in the future. And so to me, it looks more relatable rather than messier, you know?
Yeah, but it's turning all the aesthetic watchers away, and they're like, this is annoying. And that's what's so tough is like, so the one thing Trump does do really well, and I hate even admitting that he does.
Wow, I can't believe you're saying this.
I know he reaches his constituents. He knows how to get to his people, and he knows how to get them out to vote. And the thing that sucks so bad is the Republican Party and those who are going to vote. Trump knows exactly who they are. He knows exactly what they want to hear, and he knows how to get them to vote. But with the Democratic Party, it's so hard to get the moderates, the progressive liberals, the ones who are now saying, you know what, I'm going to be a democratic socialist. We have so many different branches. It's hard to say the right thing to all of them at the same time. And they're all spread over different social media platforms. Most Trump supporters are like old ladies who go on Facebook and that's their news source. And he can pay a couple $1 million an ad and pump it through their Facebook feed of, you need to get out and vote. And then they're like, oh my gosh, he's personally talking to me. He's literally on my screen telling me right now. And it's like Biden isn't doing as much. I don't see anything on TikTok, the largest social media app in the world that we have ever seen. I have not seen a single political like pro Joe Biden TikTok from his campaign. I haven't seen anything from Trump either. So luckily, you know, he's not dominating that. But there are like 132 million people that just spend hours and hours on TikTok a day. And I don't see anything from Biden. And it's like, if you really want to meet like the younger voter and those who are kind of on the fence about you because, you know, CNN and Facebook are the only places talking about you, then you need to utilize systems like that to be like, here's what I'm going for. And TikTok is so easy to use. I'm like, you can do it, Biden. You know how to ride a bike. It's like the same thing.
Well, you know, politically now they don't want to get involved with TikTok, but you have to go where the people are. And I think you made a really good point is that even before the DNC, but now that the DNC is virtual, social media will play a critical role in getting the votes out. You can go knock on as many doors as you want, but especially if you want your younger voters.
Exactly. And the thing that a lot of politicians aren't grasping with like the TikTok argument that I wish they would, because when Donald Trump talked about banning TikTok, it opened two conversations of how much freedom of speech can Trump really limit, because the biggest thing behind TikTok is people were using it as a platform to harass Donald Trump. I don't know if you got to like see all of it, but they were encouraging people to go to Donald Trump's website and buy all of his merch, put it in your shopping cart, and just leave it there. And so many people did that it cost them like so much money. The Trump administration got so mad because they're like, why would you put that in your shopping cart if you're not going to get it? We started making this stuff and now no one's getting it. And then people buying tickets to his rally, and they're like, Trump tweeting, we have full house, everyone's going to be there. And then only like 200 people showed up because we reserved all the tickets. Like, they were using it as a weapon against Donald Trump. And I feel like if Biden would have said, you know, called Trump out on that and be like, you're not banning it because third party metadata is being given to China. Facebook does that. Skype does that. Snapchat does that. Instagram does that. Every social media that we have right now does exactly what TikTok's doing with a middleman. TikTok just cuts out the middleman and China has the data directly. It's not any different than other social media. And I wish you would have came out and been like, you're not going to take TikTok. Kids are having fun in this app. There's so much knowledge going around about different cultures, about politics, about how to do stuff, DIYs. It's been this amazing hub that's really gotten people through a lot of quarantine because it's encouraged them to try different lifestyles, do different things. And it's attacked Donald Trump. And I wish that he would have just said, Mr. Trump, you're not going to silence the people. I'm sorry they use this app against you, but that's how it is and it's going to stay. It would have been so powerful. It would have been so powerful. And I know it's so stupid that a social media app can play that big of, but it's a huge app. It is huge.
Well, and especially now, I mean, I know like, you know, our grandparents would be like laughing, you know, rolling over in their graves thinking, how does social media play such a role? But you can fight it all you want, but that's really the biggest weapon right now to rally voters, you know.
Exactly.